Hello. Today I want to do a reaction video, or I should say a response video to Styxhexenhammer666 and Sargon of Akkad on an important question. What would happen geopolitically if America broke up? Now, while Sargon and Styx in particular, make a lot of hyperbolic statements about, the geopolitical implications of an American collapse or ethno-states, they raise one very legitimate question. What would happen if the United States actually broke down and dissolved into smaller racially homogeneous states or just culturally distinct states? What would be the implications of the decline of the American empire? So let's assume that ethno-states formed in the US based on regional racial concentrations. A Hispanic ethno-state on the American Southwest, a black ethno-state in the Black Belt in the Deep South, an American continuation government in the Northeast, and the rest becomes the white ethno-state. The US ceases to be global superpower and Pax Americana ends. What then? Now, Styx and Sargon raises a very legitimate concern that once the US falls, then the entire world will be dominated by China, or the US fragments will become Chinese economic colonies or will be vulnerable to Chinese invasion. Ironically, Sargon and Styx, while making this argument for the United States, will in the same breath condemn the EU and celebrate its dissolution when the same argument is just as potent for Western Europe. If the EU collapsed, wouldn't Russia conquer Eastern Europe with impunity? Wouldn't Europe become a Chinese economic colony? This is Richard Spencer's take on the EU, that it's necessary to protect Europeans from Chinese domination. To this, I will point to the very criticism Sargon and Styx themselves make of the EU. It is not necessary to defend Europe. European states maintained a balance of power system for centuries, long before the EU ever came about, and they do not need an authoritarian superstate to defend them. This statement can similarly be made about the US fragments in relation to China. A Chinese military invasion will not happen for the same reason the US does not invade Russia right now, despite vast military superiority: nuclear deterrence. The new states can easily agree to split up the US nuclear arsenal, ensuring that each have a deterrent against invasion by the other, or by China. And as far as defense against Chinese imperialism is concerned, one must take into account the new geopolitical reality. China would now be the global hegemon that everyone fears. Countries are now forming coalitions against the US and trying to undermine the US-led world order because the US is the global hegemon right now, and everyone fears American military and economic might. That role will then be taken over by China, a country against which many countries already host significant grievances. China does not have the liberal democracy to mask, just like the US uses it to cloak its economic imperialism. The Chinese system has a more explicit totalitarian visage that already scares many countries. In short, the Chinese don't wear the velvet glove of liberalism and democracy. They openly show the iron fist. Already, most of China's neighbors are forming alliances with the US to contain China. India, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam, they all fear China and ally with the US to act as a buffer against it. Just because the US collapses, their problems with China won't disappear. If anything, they will be far amplified, as there is no longer a superpower to balance Chinese ambitions. The US successor states can form a cordon sanitaire, a Pacific military alliance to keep China at bay. It will be like NATO, which was formed to contain the Soviet juggernaut by American alliances with the Western European countries. The Pacific Military Alliance can serve as a counterbalance to Chinese imperialism. Plus, we have yet to mention the continent-sized elephant in the room: Russia. Russia and China are now only allies because of their mutual enmity with the US. Russia fears China as China is pushing economically into the Russian sphere of influence in Central Asia, and many in Russia fear that China has territorial designs on the Russian Far East and its resources. The fall of the US will end the Sino-Russian alliance, as there will be no need for it anymore. We can just as easily foresee Russia joining the PMA to contain China due to mutual interests. Plus, without the US meddling, the European countries will be free of US imperial pressure and will be able to pursue peaceful economic relations with Russia, something EU leaders already want due to economic reasons, but are unable to pursue as a result of US pressures. But already we're seeing cracks in this dam. The Germans are defying American demands by building Nord Stream 2, and President Macron of France has recently openly called for a rapprochement with Russia, as he correctly stated that pushing Russia away from Europe would make Europe excessively dependent on the United States. If the US falls, what will change is that liberalism will suffer worldwide delegitimization, and elites around the world will lose interest in it. Unlike the current US-led Western world order, there will be multipolarity. True multipolarity. Several great powers and one quasi-superpower. No, China is not going to be an invincible juggernaut that will gobble up the world. It has a severe birth crisis. It has a fertility rate of 1.3 and will soon have a shortage of 200 million workers. It's rapidly aging. There's vast overpopulation and pollution of its country. So China is going to be a quasi-superpower. It will not be a worldwide hegemonic power like the US was in the 90s or the 2000s. Instead of a US-dominated power bloc spanning all the new world, the Anzacs, Japan, South Korea, Western Europe, the Middle East, we'll get a multipolar world with several great powers, each with their own spheres of influence. Russia. The Russian sphere of influence will include Central Asia and Eastern Europe. France, Germany, and the United Kingdom. Their sphere of influence will include Western Europe, the Balkans, and North Africa. Japan. Their sphere of influence will include Southeast Asia and the Anzacs. India. Their sphere of influence will be South Asia. China. China's sphere of influence will be Indochina, the Korean Peninsula, and parts of the Middle East. If there is a white American ethno-state, if it retains a population of 100 million whites, then it will be a great power and dominate North America and Latin America. If not, these regions will be great power contest zones, or a Brazil-dominated Latin America will emerge. The Middle East will become a battle zone for the great powers as they rush to fill the American vacuum and consolidate control over the vast mineral wealth of the region. Parts of it will ally with China. Most likely the Saudi monarchy will anoint China as its new protector. Without America to hold it together, Iraq will most likely splinter into 3 regions, with a Shia Iraq, a Sunni Iraq, and a Kurdistan. While other countries like Israel will ally with the EU, Syria and Turkey will ally with Russia, and Iran will become the regional great power of the Middle East. This is, in my opinion, what will be the geopolitical reality of a post-American world. This will be my response to Styx and Sargon on what the world would look like if America were to collapse. And I can say confidently that it would be a better world. As once the American liberal order collapses, there will no longer be this worldwide push for global homoculture, for homosexuality legalization, for tranny drag kids, and all the degeneracy that comes out of the United States. The United States is the epicenter of globalism. It is the mob enforcer of international finance. And once it collapses, liberalism will go the way of the dinosaurs. And the world will be a much freer place as there is true multipolarity. And countries have greater sovereignty as they will be able to negotiate their sovereignty by allying with multiple great powers, as opposed to the current American-dominated unipolar world where there is only American power. So this is all for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. As always, please share and subscribe. Goodbye.